Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in for another Fishing 101 video. Today's video we are going to talk about everybody's favorite pastime in the spring, and that's bed fishing. Now, bed fishing is a very, very delicate subject amongst a lot of bass fishermen. I'm going to talk about some of the do's and don'ts, and then I'm going to show you some of the techniques that I use that are successful in bed fishing and that might help you out as well. All right, so let's get the nasty business out of the way. Let's get the do's and don'ts, and let's talk about, what bed fishing is and why it's important to do it the right way for our fisheries. So first of all, bed fishing is when the bass are moving up to spawn. Typically it happens in the early spring, or in Northern California's case, it's happening a little bit later because we've had a lot of cold storms roll through. In some areas the fish have already moved up or are starting to, and that's great because it's fun fishing and it's really something good that you can teach kids with and other things, and teach them how to properly maintain our fisheries. So what happens is the water starts reaching that magical temperature depending on where you live, low 50s, and those bass start moving up to spawn. Sometimes it's right with the full moon. You have to kind of watch that and pay attention to your solar lunar tables and everything else, and that'll help you. So the fish move up to spawn. The males and the females move in and they make their beds. You can tell if you've caught a bed fish. Typically they have a bloody tail, very red tail, maybe if it's recovering. And typically the females get super fat this time of year because they're full of eggs. So they move up, they do their business, and the female typically moves off the bed and the male stays there to guard after she's laid her eggs. So sometimes you may pull up on a bed, and a bed is going to appear as either a dark spot or a light spot in the lake where there's no vegetation, no other loose debris, and it's going to be on a hard bottom typically, maybe on a rock. I've seen them on ladders, climbing up, or stairwells that go up into houseboats where, there's not much other structure around. So they're going to bed on those types of places. Now, why do they appear as a light spot or a dark spot? Well, it depends on the surface of your lake. In some lakes where you have a really hard bottom that's a dark colored material, it's going to appear darker where they've cleared away all the silt and debris. And then just the opposite if the lake bed bottom is a lighter material. But it's where they've gone in with their tail, they've cleared away a circle. It can be big, it can be a couple 2 feet across, maybe 3 feet across, and it can be pretty small as well. It all depends on the bass and the situation. So most females, the bigger females, move in pretty early. And they get up on the bed, and if you catch it at the right time, you'll find those females on the bed, and then you can stick them and have a good time catching them. Probably upgrade your personal best because this is the time of year to be doing that. But let's get into the negative side of this. There are a lot of people that go out there and do this. They pull the fish off the bed, they take them home, they do whatever. It hurts our fisheries because those are the fish that are going to be reproducing and kicking out that next generation of fish, especially those big girls, those ones that are 6, 7, 8, 9 pounds. Those are older fish, and they're going to be creating a population of fish that are genetically the same as them, that are going to be bigger, stronger fish as well. And we definitely want to preserve that. So my word of caution, at least in the fishing world, the bass fishing world, is if you are out there fishing and you're bed fishing, especially if you're doing it for fun, you're not in a tournament or whatnot, catch those fish, get your pictures, weigh them, do everything you want to do with them, and put them right back as close to that bed as you can. That way they can get back on there and protect their spot and preserve the species and protect the lake. I don't have a problem with people taking bass home to eat, to feed their families or anything like that. Springtime is a tough time to do that because you may lay into one of those bed fish. Those 2.5 to 3 pound fish that you catch throughout the year, those are prime eating fish, and usually there's a larger population of those, so that's prime for that. But otherwise during the spring, just use caution and be careful with what you do. If you stick a big female, get them in the boat, take the pictures, do all that great stuff, and then get them right back out in the water. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some of the baits and techniques that I like to use when I'm bed fishing. Now, if I'm doing this during a tournament, like we were talking about before, I'm going to stick these fish in my live well, and that's an unavoidable thing. Obviously, you still get them back in the water. You got to get them back in there alive, and they will find a new spot typically. But if I'm out fun fishing and I stick a bed fish, I'm going to get my pictures. I'm going to do all the things that I want to do, and I'm going to get that fish right back in the water as quickly as possible. Now, there are several baits that historically are phenomenal bed fishing baits, and we're going to talk about those. And I'm going to go through this little stack of baits I got here one by one and talk about why each one works for a different reason. But your lizards. Lizards are a phenomenal bed bait, and they have been for years. I like using a white or a chartreuse lizard like these Zoom lizards here, just because they show up well against that surface when you cast into those beds. Again, you want to be able to see that bait because a lot of time you're not going to feel the bass pick them up. They're not really eating the bait. They're picking it up to move it off their bed. They're trying to get it away from those eggs. Lizard, phenomenal bait for that particular presentation. Another bait that's long been used on beds is tubes. Tubes fall very uniquely through the water when rigged right. They kind of do a spiral motion down towards the water, and if they land on that bed, the bass are going to spot that. They're sitting on the bed as it's falling through the water. They're going to key in on it, and the second it lands in their bed, they're going to attack it. Now, with any of these baits, you may have to move that bait on the bed a little bit to find what we call the sweet spot. The sweet spot is probably right where those eggs are at, and the bass, they get relentless. They just get more and more aggressive. You may throw into a bed, you know, for a bass 5 or 6 times and they may not do anything. Change baits, try something different. They're gonna react to something eventually. You gotta kind of sometimes get them mad and they get angry and they'll come in after the bait. So that's the first two. Another thing that we all like to throw are Senkos. Senkos, again, wacky rigged or Texas rigged. They're gonna fall through the water very, very uniquely. They're gonna come down whether they're Texas rigged and they kind of do that, or whether they're wacky rigged and they kind of do that pulsing motion on the way down. Again, the fish see them falling through the water column and they're gonna jump all over them really hard, really fast, really aggressively. Again, you gotta hit that sweet spot, so you gotta be careful because these baits obviously are a bait that the bass eat on the fall. So once it hits the bottom, you can definitely pop it up a little bit, but it's gonna have less movement falling back to that next spot to get on that sweet spot, so the bass may not react the same. So you may just need to reel in, pitch or flip right back into that spot again for the next one. Now the third thing the next bait I'm gonna talk about are these little GrandeBass Rattlesnakes. Now this color is a unique color, it's a bubblegum color. I like to throw these bright colors, like I said earlier, during the spawn because I can see them, and for some reason, I don't know why, but bass really, really react well during the spawn to pink colors. Whether it's a pink bait like this or a Senko or any number of these other baits that we're talking about, I can't explain it. I don't know why they see it differently or whatnot. Maybe it looks different to them. Obviously, they don't see red colors as well. So this is in that red family, but as it falls in there, they see it, they react, they eat it. I wish I knew. And I know these things have a lot of good scent in them, and that's a big factor too, is they smell it. So it's coming through the water, smelling really like something to eat, and then they see it and they jump all over it. But I love throwing these rattlesnakes up on the beds during the springtime. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is another GrandeBass bait, which is their swimming rattlesnake. It's kind of like a Kitech, but it's their own little version. It's a rattlesnake with a little boot tail on the back that just kicks through the water as it's going through. Now, this is something you're not going to hear from a lot of bass anglers talking about because it's a long guarded secret. I share with you guys, I love you guys. So here's something you're not going to hear. Swim baits work on beds. They work really, really well. Now don't go tell your friends, just share it with all of us here, but this is a phenomenal thing on beds. And so these little baits rigged up right, Texas rigged, with a little bit of a weight so they fall through the water right, get on that bed, really work it so that nose is down, that tail's up. Holy cow, hold on. That leads me to my last bait that's over here. It's a bait that I got that's an old D&M bait that they ran, and it kind of came a little janky from the manufacturer when they got them ran, and so they didn't really produce them. But Dale over at D&M gave me a few of these a few years ago. I took this one and dyed it to be this pink color. And I throw this thing every year on the beds, and I can tell you what, this thing has had some fish on it. And it's a really durable bait, really strong bait, so it lasts really well. It's got a weight up in the head so it falls. It actually kind of falls like a tube. It swirls through the water. And this thing flat out works. I love it. It really works. It really works well. And this you'll see tied up on my rods when I'm bed fishing in the springtime. So that leaves us basically through the baits that I like to use. Obviously, there's a lot of different things that you can use, during the spring. Preserve the fisheries, be careful, have fun out there. But most importantly, try to get those fish back in the water as soon as you can when you're bed fishing so that they can do their business and we can have a new population of big bass next year. So in closing, I just wanted to remind you guys, have fun out there, catch fish. I'm not telling you guys what to do on how to bed fish or how to, manage your lakes or your ponds or what to do. But amongst the bass fishing world, there's kind of these unwritten rules about how close to get to another boat when you're fishing, especially during tournaments. Poaching somebody else's spots. Don't drive by if you got a boat and GPS somebody's spot. That's a big no-no and really frowned upon in the world. And then of course when we're talking about bed fishing, you know, the preservation of our bass is really important, so we got to do the things that we do there. Now, you guys have probably seen over the past few weeks in some of my videos, I've been talking a lot about the GrandeBass products. If you follow me on Instagram, I kind of left a little teaser there a few weeks ago. We are working together. I'm in the process of working with the folks over at GrandeBass, Jerry and the guys, and they, you know me, I like their products. I've been talking about them for years. They saw the channel, we talked about some things, and we're going to be working together in the future to bring you some unique content for them and their products and continue to talk about it. They're not paying for this video. I featured their baits because I have in the past, and I will continue to because I like their stuff. And they work really well, and I catch a lot of fish with them. So, welcome GrandeBass on board with the Texas John Fishing family, and we'll keep going forward with them and the other stuff that works for us. So, with that said, thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Have fun out there, be safe on the water, and we'll see you next video.